Hello and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. We're looking at running contacts, but we're also looking at our Seesaw in tandem and how we need to work both together. So in this episode on Seesaw games that link with our dog walk, we want to look about the movement. Now obviously the dog walk is a fixed obstacle, and when the dog goes up there is going to be some movement. They vibrate, they wobble, but it's not going to be a lot of movement. But when they go onto the seesaw, there's going to be movement. So what do we do to help our dog to overcome any nervousness or fear of movement on the seesaw? So when we first start working on a plank, going to the seesaw, the first thing that spooks the dog after the sound is they go, oh, hang on, this moves. Usually we start with the seesaw training. We have it completely rigid to begin with, which is actually a completely logical thing to do because we're trying to build that confidence on a rigid surface. And then we start introducing the tip. But of course this can really throw dogs off because they go, well, hang on, I'm so used to doing things that don't tip. Now they do. This is one of the reasons why I'm saying that it's a good idea to be doing the seesaw early on in tandem with the dog walk, because as I said in the past, you would do the dog walk until it was solid. And then you move to the seesaw and you're changing criteria quite dramatically. You're changing them from understanding that all the obstacles I do in agility are solid to suddenly, well, there's this one obstacle that looks like a dog walk, but it isn't solid, it moves. The big thing I find with the seesaw is the tip point. The tip point is different, as she just found it. The tip point is different for all dogs because it's dependent on the weight of the dog. So some dogs will have to get, if they're really tiny and light, they'll have to get quite high up before it starts to tip. Heavier dogs, it's going to tip earlier. But you'll notice that for a lot of dogs, the tip point is the point where they go, whoop, it's moving. I've got old videos of Merlin, and bless his heart, he used to come up here, because I didn't know too much how to teach seesaws and anything like that. He was my first proper agility dog. And we did try and get him all confident, but never came there. But he'd get up to here, about here, and he'd go, okay, it's the seesaw. I know it's the seesaw, it's going to tip. And we'd stand and one paw would go up and we'd go, is it going to tip? Is it going to tip? Ah, it's tipping, now I can move. And it was, there was this, you could see it every time he'd go up there, he'd go, okay, right, waiting for it, wait, there it is. And I got, because he was waiting for that tip. And you'll find lots of dogs do that. They become very, unless they're very gung-ho and don't particularly care, and let's face it, they're going to throw themselves about and hurt themselves. So we have to be careful with them too. Most dogs will go, that is the tip point. I know it's the tip point. There are lots of things around the tip point, and I could go on it for ages. Some dogs, like Swift, she will stop at the tip point and lie down in her end position behaviour. So then she's a bit too high up, really, before she leaves, because that's where she's finding the tip point. Other dogs, that's the moment they might jump off. Other dogs, if a seesaw doesn't tip too soon enough, they'll go, well, it's taking too long and bailing. Or they don't understand they have to hold on to the seesaw before it hits the ground. So there's all these factors. So, we're just covering one small bit of this puzzle in this big thing, because the seesaw is a whole epic training series all of its own. Okay, so how do we start working through this movement issue? Some people like to start by doing things at home, like on wobble boards and things that move under their feet at home, to try and accustomize the dog to being on objects that move. Yep, that certainly can be useful. That being said, I did all that with Swift. Swift will get on a wobble board, no problem. I did it with Magpie, she's fine, but they still had issues with the seesaw. So though they understood that movement, did it transfer? No. So I still had to work on this seesaw on its own. Of course, if you've got an adjustable seesaw, that'd be excellent, because you could actually lower it so the tip would change as you did it. I haven't, so we work with what we've got. So I've got my strut, which is ideal. Now, because of where I place this strut, I can either have no tip, or a very slight tip, or slightly bigger tip. Now at this point, I'm not going to the stage where my seesaw is going to be tipping fully, because that's a different game and a behaviour I want to teach separately. What I'm teaching here is that you get on the seesaw, it's going to move a bit under your feet, and just getting used to that. So as you can see at the moment, it's up slightly because Swift's on it. So what I would do is I'd have her on there. I would ask her, actually just come off a minute, Swift, can you come off? I would ask her to jump on herself. Now we do this, good girl, with it being completely solid. So there's absolutely no issue with her going on this when it's completely solid. And she'd learn to jump on then. And now I've introduced a slight tip. So that's the first thing, it's going to be solid. Jumping on and off, that's fine. Remember how we taught on the dog walk how to bail off? we're doing that here as well, and just getting the dog used to the fact that this tips. And you can see that she's getting on here. The seesaw is tipping back and forth just a little. She's even stepping on the tip point. She's not worried. It's just another part of the game, so I can run her back and forth. So we're just playing this as part of the game. Now, of course, you may find that initially your dog doesn't like this at all. You may have to be really cautious. You may only get them to move a tiny bit back and forth here rather than this full extent. But as they get more confident, this becomes something that doesn't bother them, and they could be going back and forth, back and forth. So I thought I'd see if we'll get Magpie to come up on here, because Magpie is obviously a bit less confident, so that'll be good to show a dog that's slightly less confident with a tip. Mags! Okay, what have we got? So that was actually really good from her. She's going off because she wants to see Sparrow, but you see she can be more nervous of the tip. She's actually looking more for the tip, whereas Swift is just concentrating on, oh, there's treats. Give me treats. Oh, that's end behaviour. So she's like, yeah, I know this is a seesaw. So we play this back and forth. Let's make this a bit tippier. Okay, so now we've got quite a bigger tip. It's not a huge tip, but it's a bigger tip. Yep, no probs. She says, yeah, that's fine. And I'll play on here till the cows come home. Back and forth, tipping. Do you see when she felt it tip, she did her end behaviour? I don't really mind. I'm not wanting her to do end behaviour. I just want her to be moving through the tip. So basically what we're teaching is that the movement's fine and that you can keep going even though it tips, and you're not to worry about it. And as you can see, we've gone from the dog that freaked out at seesaws to the point she refused to do dog walks full stop, wouldn't go near them, to a dog that doesn't give a damn. And that's what we want. So we can build this behaviour up and up with the tipping movement. And obviously we're not getting to a stage where it's doing the complete full behaviour, because we wouldn't want our dog, it wouldn't be safe for our dog to be doing this back and forth on a seesaw that was completely moving. I would get this to a little bit further, obviously to the extent of here, so maybe a little bit further, and then I would stop on that game, though it doesn't hurt to come back and play that game from time to time, or for your dog's career, because you can always be proofing stuff. But I wouldn't ever be asking them to be running back and forth on a seesaw that tips fully, no, because that would actually could potentially be quite hazardous, and that's not achieving what we want to achieve. Because let's face it, if the dog's seeing a full height seesaw and they run up it and then they turn around and come back off again, that's not what we want. So I only do this at this very little stage, but it's just a case of getting them used to that movement under their feet and understanding that it's okay and not to worry about it. And in actual fact, it will help if you do get a slightly more wobbly dog walk that vibrates a bit more, because they're all different under your feet. They will actually help with that as well. So that's our little tipping game that we're going to play to help our dog understand that movement's okay, and we can do that in tandem. So what I usually do is I do a session here of one of my seesaw games, and then I go over and do my running contacts. That's how I'm doing it, so that they are getting the idea that, yeah, this is what I do here, and now I can go over and do running contacts and I don't have to worry. Okay, so now we're done this, and this is just a little game for playing there. We're going to move on and talk about impact and also names. So in the next video, we're going to talk about next stage along, and then we'll be getting back to doing actual running contacts on a dog walk again. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you might have subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you can hit the bell icon and you'll get notifications of when new videos come out. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.